You join us at a poignant moment in Australia's footballing history, where after a 32-year wait, Australia will walk on the pitch behind me, face the sun and engage in a game of football that will captivate all in our country like few other events have done before. Good evening again. Buonasera from Rome. And welcome to USA 94, the first day of the biggest sporting feast in human history. Counting down the minutes to the 1998 World Cup final between France and Brazil. Yes, good evening and welcome to the World Cup show, coming to you live from Berlin. This is the 2010 FIFA World Cup, live from South Africa, only on SBS. Good evening to you from Rio de Janeiro. Welcome to Brazil and welcome to the 2014 FIFA World Cup show, coming to you live from our studios here on the sands of the world-famous Copacabana Beach.
The late and great Les Murray, 8 World Cups, and for me, epitomises journalism for Australian football. Not everyone will agree with me, but yeah, the great man himself, no longer with us.
Yes, it's a sad loss, and absolutely can't deny his passion for the game and passion for bringing it to Australia.
Absolutely, and we'll have a few more grabs throughout the show. This is the World Football Programme. I'm Sean Kelly. I am your host for the next 2 hours. With me in the studio at the moment is Peter Sakila, and we are waiting very patiently for Danny. So, Danny, if you're out there, get your skates on, son. I'm not nervous, you know, just live radio. That's the way it goes. Thanks to Frank and Jerry for a wonderful Songs from Ireland show again. Always nice to follow professionals. Doesn't make it hard at all for me. And in 2 hours, Bags Groove will be on with some jazz. So, yeah, we're here to fill your football knowledge for the next 2 hours. Like to thank our sponsors for putting us on air. So, thanks to Perth Glory, Australian Mini Football Federation, Dataplatz, Rachel Pepper Illustrations, Gate and Fence Hardware WA, Oswest Fencing and Raw Iron, Melville City Football Club and Prosperity Strata Management. So please, back them as they back us, and they'll keep us on the air, and they'll also provide with some very, very good services. So please do indulge in their services. All right, news. Been a huge week. Obviously, we've had the FFA Cup, some giant killing. Yep. Some disappointment.
We were one of the giants, arguably, that were killed.
We were and we weren't, and yeah. And I think when you look at it, for me, the real story there was Western Knights, State League side from WA, first time into the last 32. They've gone out there, got beat 3-1 by a good side, not disgraced. Not disgraced, and good to see my old mate Jamie Burns banging one in there at the end. The big man, Jamie, the TV does add 10 kilos. The rest is down to you, son. No, when the bloke said big man, you know what he's saying, really. But no, look, he's very deceptively quick, young Jamie. But good to see him score a goal there on Foxtel. So, great week of football in that regard. You cannot go past the Matildas.
Oh,
I know. A couple of nations
they broke with that. Yeah, and as you say, yes, it's a friendly tournament, but first ever win over the US.
Yeah, Cup of Nations.
Yep.
They say, look, it's only a Mickey Mouse thing, but it's not. Start up, walk up, number one team in the world, America.
Yep.
Beat them.
I believe they had 13 players from their last World Cup squad were in the team. So it wasn't a Mickey Mouse,
they're number one. They are
team.
number one for a reason.
Yep.
And they've gone out and beat them 1-0. Then you've got Japan, Asian champions.
Yep.
Made them, Sam Kerr made them like Muppets, let's face it. And then you've gone out against Brazil. Now, whoever thought you would hear the score, Australia 6, Brazil 1. It's just absolutely outstanding. And then you look at Sam Kerr, you've got to be saying, pencil her name on 2 trophies. Number 1, Asian Player of the Year.
Yep.
And number 2, the Ballon d'Or. I think she is the best player going around pound for pound anywhere. I've seen her play live. She's an exciting girl to watch play. It's a shame they won't let her play A-League because I reckon she'd give it a crack as well. But brilliant to see her there. And she's a local. And she is the women's equivalent of Neymar or Messi.
Yeah.
And if she was a male.
Yeah, we would not be hearing the end.
Yeah, she would be raking it in. She'd be able to rescue the WA economy. And welcome to the studio, Danny.
Hello, good to be here. Sorry I'm late.
No, that's all right, mate. That's you in a nutshell, son.
Well, I thought I'd mix it up and go the wrong way this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
You've been away from the studio that long?
It has been. It hasn't been that long.
It's been a while. Yeah. Good to have you in, mate.
Good to be here.
So that was the Cup of Nations. I thought they did really well. And talking about Neymar, his 200 million euro transfer fee makes the 95 million for Cristiano Ronaldo look like a bargain. So that's just magic money, really, when you think about it.
Some would say obscene.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the market decides what it wants.
Yeah. Oh, the market. Yeah, look, market forces. Yeah. Also, local news. I've been banging on about the zone reps and how Football West haven't published and anything else. They have.
Okay.
So now you can get out there. It's a very good thing to have out there. There are a couple of standing league committees that haven't been able to form because people haven't got interested. And there are some spaces in standing leagues and zone reps. So please get on the football website, look under election results, and everything is there. And if you're a keyboard warrior with an opinion, please volunteer for one of those spots. Yep. I'll go to the forums, I'll have a look. And there's plenty of people out there who know exactly what to do to fix it. So here's your option. Get out there and do it rather than just gobbing off on a keyboard. And I think also the value of the zone reps might have been coincidental, may not have been. But as they went up, a club reached out to their zone rep. They had a very serious problem which needed some negotiation between themselves, Football West and clubs. Yep. And I'm very happy to say they've resolved that situation with the help of their zone rep. So it's good to see the zone reps out there and people bang on about how the zone reps do nothing. I can tell you from personal experience and from what I've seen from another club in the State League, you get on your State League or your zone rep and they'll actually work for you. So that's a good thing. Please do get involved, get behind your zone reps, and if you've got a bit of spare time and an opinion, volunteer for one of those committees. All right, and one more thing from local news. Very interesting one. Is, I don't know if you've been following the town of Vincent and what goes on, but they've been putting out expressions of interest for Britannia Oval, which is the home of Floreat. I believe there is another club who have responded, and I believe UWA Netherlands are putting in a submission for the use of the ground. That'll go down well.
For the use of Littis.
Yeah, well, not Littis. No, Littis, Britannia. The field's around. So, I think Littis is sewn in.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be even more interesting. Well, I guess if it's open to tenure, so to speak, then they've got every right to do it. Yep. But I wouldn't have thought that would go down too well.
No.
if it goes ahead?
Well, look, it's out there. It's out in the public media, and people are entitled to put in submissions for whatever they like. But I would have thought, common decency. We had all the ground stealer stuff last year with a certain club, and I think that could start again if that happens.
Will they be renamed, UWA Netherlands Vincent then, or,
Who knows? I've got no idea. But
It's got a good ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know.
Really rolls off the tongue.
It does.
Yeah, good acronym.
Does. Some fixtures today around the place. There's a very good fixture in the First Division. It's Ashfield versus Knights. It's the ladies' day out there. So all you ladies, head out that way. And
you're probably hoping to catch Knights maybe with a bit of a hangover from their trip to the Gold Coast.
Oh, you'd like to think so, but I think Knights are a much, much better prepared team than that. And I think anyone who thinks they're going to be jet-lagged, hungover, or silly is fooling themselves. We'll be going out there expecting to play the side that beats Sorrento in the Cup.
Yep.
And that's the only way to approach the game. Also out there, following the State League game, the East Perth amateur side will be playing a twilight fixture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And just to make it a big weekend.
Who are they playing against?
You're the stats man, you tell me. I just know they're playing in the twilight
playing a
fixture.
game, that's good enough.
I only found out this morning it was happening, so that's a bit of news from Ashfield. And also we've got the big clash for the NPL game out there on Sunday between Perth Glory and Basie. So big weekend of football up there in Ashley.
Right on the train line too, for anyone that...
Absolutely, yeah. And understand, so if it's raining, you can get under cover and watch the game from there. So all good things happening out that way. Danny, anything happening over there at Wimbledon? You've got Shamrock.
We've got Shamrock at Harold Rossiter.
Yeah.
Expecting a tough game because they're fighting for survival, really.
On and off the park, I saw a thing during the week. Harold Rossiter is subject to a takeover bid from the hockey club.
Okay.
Who
UWA aren't going in there as well?
No, not yet. But the hockey club didn't even realise there was a football club playing out of it. It tells you where they're at. But
right.
They've been battling along with their council for space. So,
okay.
tough time for Shamrock.
It is, but I know Jerry McEwen's been there for however many weeks now, and he's obviously got a track record of having teams that are very typically direct but very organised.
Yeah.
And he's brought a few players in, as I understand, so it's not a game we're going to be taking lightly. But we're towards the top end of the table, and we're expected to win, so we go in wanting 3 points.
Absolutely.
Albeit, as I said, not expecting it to be necessarily all going to go our way all game,
And Pete, do you have the fixtures there for the NPL this weekend?
For the NPL, yes, I do indeed. So at NPL coming up this week, today, Sorrento travelling to Joondalup United. Subiaco AFC are at home against Perth SC. ECU Joondalup play hosts to Balcatta City. Mandurah are travelling up to Floreat Athena. Coburn's at home against Stirling Lions. Armidale host Inglewood United. And as we said, tomorrow, Bayswater City and Perth Glory are playing out at Ashfield, you said.
It was a pretty big game for Perth Glory as well, isn't it, really?
Oh, massive. Look at the bottom end of the table. Now that and I know, again, Keyboard Warriors will tell you it ain't going to happen, there will be a team coming down from the NPL, and if that team happens to be Perth Glory, they will go down.
Good.
So that's locked in, as you would say already. But
is it locked in that just one team goes down, or
locked in just one team goes down? Yeah. And the team coming up will either be the first place team, and if they don't meet the criteria for NPL, then there will be a playoff between the side coming down and the eligible sides going up there in the top four. So, for instance, I don't think Western Knights, who are in top spot, meet the criteria.
First division's really tight, so it's 3 points separating the first four teams.
I'm pretty
sure Dianella do either. But
Dianella don't either.
So the other two,
Forestfield and Bunbury probably do. Well, I say Forestfield definitely do. Bunbury I'm not sure about, but I would say they do. So it may well be that that's the end of the season do. Also down there are a couple of other clubs, Mandurah and
Balcatta,
yes. Yeah, so There's a few in the mix there, and I think the last game of the season is Mandurah Balcatta.
Oh.
So
In Mandurah?
I'm not sure where it is, but wherever it's going to be a punch-up. A game to look forward. A game to look forward to. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, look, a game with a lot on the line, and I suppose we've moaned and groaned about promotion relegation the whole time. But I think one of the reasons First Division and Second Division are so strong is that it's a reality and has every year. And if you don't improve, you're going to go down. Yep. Clubs along the way, Morley, Swan, Shamrock, have all found that. And the teams coming up, Joondalup United, UWA, Rockingham, Forestfield are all coming back stronger. Yeah. But, you look at Forestfield, went down, came back stronger. The same for Rockingham. They went down, they've come back stronger. Morley went down, hopefully they'll come back stronger. And that's what's improving the standard up in Division 1. And, to the point now where when you got to the quarterfinals of the Cup, half those teams were from the State League. And the eventual winner of the Cup was the State League side. So, the gap is closing, and that's a conversation we'll have later on with someone else. All right, I'm going to put some messages on, and after that we will be back with Martin Wells. Martin was the producer of this very show some 30-odd years ago, so and he's going to do a tribute for the late, great Les Murray. So we'll be back after these.
Oswest Fencing and Wrought Iron. Our family fabricates fence panels, gates and framework. Repairs gates and sets up automated systems. Ring us on 9258 6822 for old-fashioned family service and advice. Station sponsor.
The World Football Program welcomes the Australian Mini Football Federation onto Radio Fremantle. Join the growing numbers playing non-traditional forms of football at any of the Area 5 centres around Perth. Find out more on osminifootball.com. Station sponsor.
Gate Fence Hardware WA are your local business, supplying materials, components and parts for fencing and gates. Practical and simple how-to advice by our family. Products shipped anywhere. Visit our online store at gateandfencehardware.com.au. Station sponsor.
Yeah, I come from a generation where Les was the face of football, and for a long time during that time, I've said often it was tough love in the game. And every time you found a kindred spirit, you kind of banded together, and that should never be forgotten. It was a long time where it was only certain people who were driving the growth of the game and keeping that flame, which looked like blowing out, flickering along, and Les was a massive part of that.
And that was Ange Postecoglou with a tribute there to Les Murray. Now, on the line, I have a voice from way back in Martin Wells, who was the producer of this show some years ago. Martin, good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. An auspicious week for Australian football, all in all.
Absolutely it was, yes.
Yes, indeed. And with the Matildas doing well, that's good. And unfortunately, the passing of Mr. Football himself, as Ange has just commented upon, that was a very a sad moment for all of us when we learned of the passing of Les Murray.
Yeah, and it's surprising because I hadn't heard of him suffering a long illness, and at 71, he's still a young man.
Well, interestingly enough, when I read all the tributes online, and I must admit there were some very elegant ones, so I'm not even going to try and get anywhere near that when I talk about the great man. But I found it interesting that, in fact, Les and I are born on the same month, born in the same year, and born 15 days, he's 15 days older than me. So it's the veteran show for you today, Sean, for
That's
sure.
good. That's all, I like veterans.
Well, one day you might remember to play it. But,
no, I've been there, done that.
Okay. To get back to Mr. Murray, as I say, Ange has obviously paid his tributes, and there have been many tributes online, some excellent ones, some very moving ones, especially from Craig Foster. So I'm not even going to try and emulate those, but what I will share with you and your listeners is a story which involved Les on this very radio station back in the old NSL days.
That sounds good.
What happened, those of you who remember the NSL days remember that a Hungarian star of the 1950s, a guy called Franz Puskás, came over and was coaching South Melbourne for a while in the old NSL.
Yeah.
So I thought, he being Hungarian, it would be the ideal chance to invite Les onto the program again to the comment on the glory days of Hungarian football in the 50s.
Yeah.
And we had a very good chat. Les was as friendly as you can imagine he always was. And during the course of the program, we talked about a game in the 1950s in Britain when Les and I were kids. And Les made the observation that Chris was, in his time, one of the great European footballers, along with people like Eusebio and people from that era. And we went on to discuss that, and I had a memory then of coming home from school in the UK and calling in on my grandfather on the way home. And my grandfather looked very, very sad, and I said, "Granddad, what's wrong?" He said, "We lost." And I said, "What do you mean we lost?" He said, "Well," and in those days England did have a football team of note, as opposed to what we've got today, which is another story. But England were, just about indomitable in those days in the mid-50s, and they were beaten at Wembley. The first time England had been beaten at Wembley since Granny was a girl by Hungary. I forget the score, but Hungary certainly beat England, and my grandfather was most upset. And I related the story to Les, and Les says, yes, he could remember when he was a young lad before the revolution in Hungary and before he and his family escaped. And he said, yes, I remember the time well. And then Les, as only Les could, he said, what we've got to be careful about here, Martin. And I said, yes, Les, what's that? He said, if we're not careful, people will realise how bloody old we are. So that's, that's a personal, very fond memory of the great man. I say other people have written other things elsewhere, but that's one of my personal memories of Les. There's a couple of other ones, but as we've got young children and a listening audience before...
Not safe for radio.
We'll keep those till another time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you were involved in this show right at its very beginning. You remember a fresh-faced lass called Penny. What was your memories of her back then?
I remember Penny Chandler very well. I actually invited her onto the programme once just to come and talk about women's football. And
she hasn't stopped.
Sorry, this line's cracking up.
Yeah, she hasn't stopped.
She did very, very well. And, we know where it got her today.
Absolutely. No, love Penny to death. She's brilliant for the women's game. And talking of the women's game, over the 30-year journey, you've seen the development of women's football. Have you seen a prouder moment than picking up the Cup of Nations?
That was wonderful, wasn't it? I mean, it was Monday was a day of great mixed emotions. The Matildas won, and of course they won again 24 hours ago. But on the same day as the announcement of the passing of Les Murray, the Matildas won. So I guess it's sort of a matter of balance, isn't it? Les goes, the Matildas win, the game goes on. The game's bigger than all of us. And
it's kind of handing the baton over, and I think if you look at what the Matildas have achieved in the last couple of weeks, you've got to say FFA have really got to make some mileage out of that, publicise it, use the publicity and the presence that's given our game on the world stage a boost, because if you can't promote that, you can't promote anything. Well, I mean, we've all got our opinions about the way FFA are handling a game at the moment, but so you guys don't get sued too terribly. I'll keep most of my opinions to myself. It's an absolute wonderful opportunity to publicise the women's game, and also, of course, towards their attempts for to have the Women's World Cup here in a few years. That would be, what a golden opportunity. If they can't seize on that, then... Lord help us. Yeah, and your opinion on Sam Kerr as a player? The Matildas, well, look, it's very hard to say, but you have to verge towards the West Australians, Lisa's been there, Lisa Devana, who's a local girl down in Coburn. She's someone who's been there for, not as long as I've been around, but, a few years, and she's doing very well. And, of course, Sam Kerr, Sam was just brilliant, and she came over very well on the media as well. It bodes well for women's football, and it bodes very well for Australian women's football, Australian women playing the world game across the world. It certainly does, Martin. Well, look, thank you very much for your involvement, A, in this radio programme, and B, in football, and for the kind words about Les. It's been an absolute pleasure. So good morning to everybody, and thank you. And, of course, you come from Essex, don't you? Do they play football in Essex, is that right? Oh, we won the World Cup, mate.
No, come on, Essex haven't won the World Cup, you know.
West Ham.
It's suffering to delusions of grandeur, I think.
I'm an Essex boy. What do you expect?
Well, at least you're not an Essex girl, and we won't even go there. So thanks for the time. I really appreciate it. And keep listening, folks. It's Radio Fremantle's World Football Programme.
Absolutely, Martin.
Bye-bye.
And my wife, who is an Essex girl, thanks you.
Yeah. Hello to my mother listening at home, who's an Essex girl as well.
Well, I'm sure there's an exception to every rule, Sean. If she married you, she must be a person of taste, yeah?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Martin.
Okay, bye-bye.
So, yeah, okay, Martin Wells, producer of this show some 30-odd years ago, knew Penny when she was just a wee lass. I was hoping
So he's to blame?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Look, tremendous bloke, good sense of humour on him as well. And, look, it's true. Essex girls, I mean. I know, it's good. Look, I think he's touched on a few things there, but, I think everybody has a lead story along the way, so, it's good. I think we should celebrate the life and the impact he's had in our game, not mourn his passing, so very appropriate. All right, Danny.
Yes.
Been a while, mate.
I know it has.
Last time I saw you, you just had a successful stint coaching our under-18s at Ashfield, and the States came beckoning to you, and you got your green card, and off you went. So,
well, I had a year at Stirling in the NPL doing the 18s there, and then towards the end of the season, in fact, last week of the season, the green card was granted, and you're right, I disappeared for a couple of years.
Yeah, and living the dream as a full-time professional football coach.
Yeah, it's obviously something I've been aspiring to do for a long time, and the environment allowed me to do it full-time, and I didn't have enough time to do anything else really. So it was a great experience. Hoping to get back at some point, looking at options sort of all over really.
Yeah.
But yeah, had a great time. Started in New Jersey where I was for 6 months, and then ended up in Western Massachusetts for 18. Now know what minus 40 temperatures in winter feel like.
It's great, isn't it?
I didn't actually know it could get that cold.
Yeah.
The novelty of digging your car out for snow was great for the first 2 minutes, and and then it wore off fairly quickly after that. But weather aside, it was a good experience for me. Met some great people, learned a lot of things. Was privileged to work with some good players in some pretty good programs.
So what levels were you coaching at though?
So I coached in the New England Premiership. I was technical director for a club called Soccer Domain Academy, which isn't my favourite team name in the world, but there you go. And the teams competed in the New England Premiership, which is akin to the National Premier League. In fact, it's part of their National Premier League setup.
Okay.
And then, aside from that, I also worked with the Olympic Development Program of Massachusetts, which is essentially like the NTC, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's about 3 governing bodies over there. It took me 2 years to work out all the different pathways. And now I'm back, so if it all changes while I'm gone, I'll be in trouble.
So was that primarily coaching young players, youth players, or adults?
Yeah, so it was youth predominantly.
Mm-hmm.
Our club offered programming from 3-year-olds to 18.
Okay.
With the Olympic Development Program, I was working with the 14s boys.
Yeah.
I would love to get into the senior side of things at one point, but I think this was a good starting position for me. What made it challenging where I was in Western Massachusetts was the isolation. We were about 2 hours from Boston, 2 hours from New York, not much in between. So there wasn't a lot of semi-pro college teams in that area. But made some contacts, and who knows, if I head over there again, maybe I'll look to get into the more senior side of the game.
So is that where you see yourself as a senior coach in a setup like that, or maybe here in the NPL?
It's funny, I got asked that question the other day, and I think certainly I would like to be working with senior players, which isn't to say I don't enjoy working with the younger players. I do. The reality is, though, for my line of work, It's much harder to get into the senior side of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And heading over to the States, there was an opportunity in youth football, and obviously that's what I went and did. I was back in Perth for about 6 hours, and Cass wrote me into helping him out at Morley. So for me, that's been great to be back involved, at 3 p.m, which I hadn't done for 4 or 5 years because I've been working with youth teams.
Yeah.
So that's been nice for me. But ultimately, as much as I've got ambitions for senior football, I see coaching as my career. So really, wherever the opportunities lie, is really wherever I've got to go.
Yeah, look, just my experience of you, and I've seen you with the youth players that we've had, and we had lads from 14 through to 18 in the under-18s you coached, and you're very, very good with them. And some people just have a natural ability to relate to that age group and get the best out of them, and it's something you seem to do without much effort.
I guess I'm fairly sort of relaxed and calm, and I certainly wasn't when I started coaching, but whether it's sort of been beaten out of me or what, I don't know. But I've tended to have a good relationship with any of the players I've coached. Sort of ranting and raving isn't my style, and I don't feel that you get the best out of players that way anyway.
No.
Which is fortunate, because I can't be bothered exerting the energy.
Well, no, we had a young man by the name of Ishmael Bangura that you certainly got a lot out of. He's now currently playing at Balcatta in their first team, and, in some way it's a lot of credit to yourself. But I don't think anyone's got the best out of him to the same degree that you did. You just seem to have a way of just getting him to do what he needed to do.
Yeah, look, he certainly had a good season. From memory, he scored about 36 goals.
He broke the record.
He did, from 17, 18 games, which isn't a bad return.
For a 14-year-old.
Yeah, particularly for someone who scored probably 1 out of 5 chances.
Yeah.
But I haven't caught up with him since I've been back, but I did have some correspondence with Salv, and I understand he's doing quite well at Balcatta, so that's nice. It's nice to hear.
It is, and, it's nice when you see players that you've developed, and hopefully through your Olympic program there in the States, you'll start to see some of those boys' names bobbing up around the place.
It'll be good, yeah.
So you see yourself coaching in their senior leagues, or do you see yourself coaching the women? I mean, obviously, with the success of Australia and what Stadge has done with the Matildas, do you see that there's an avenue for you to go?
I think his job's safe at the moment. But
in the States, you've got a profile. You're an Australian coach. Coaching women could be and you've done that.
Yeah, I have. It could be. I think, as I said, it's really, I'm not necessarily fixated on the idea of going down one avenue or pathway. So I think I'm fortunate to have gained experience in youth, in seniors, men and women. So it's nice that I've, I guess, got the ability to potentially apply for something in any environment.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what comes up. I'm scouring the job sites a lot of the time and making contacts on LinkedIn and doing everything else that you've got to now do as a coach these days.
So you've spent the 18 months there up in the snow. Your contract ended and you were homesick, or it's just?
I definitely wasn't homesick with. To cut what is a fairly long story short, the directors of the company decided that he was going to keep the training organisation component of the business, which is going into schools and community clubs and coaching. The academy wasn't profitable for him, which from a business standpoint is why it's big business over there. It's probably the right decision, but for me it wasn't the avenue that I wanted to take in my coaching. So, we shook hands and left on good terms, and unfortunately, in this particular case, that with my employment was my house and my car. So it worked out cheaper that I come back to Australia. And
you didn't fancy the confines of a snow cave there?
I didn't. I tried it for a day, but so that it's just the way it worked out on this occasion. But I'm still in fairly regular contact with people over there.
And your best memory?
Best memory, wow.
It doesn't have to be football related.
I was going to say, like our last guest, I've probably got some stories that I'll leave off there, but no, I generally just the cultural experience for the place I was in Western Massachusetts, it's 2 hours out of Boston, so quite a small county called Berkshire County. And for all the kids across the county, it's akin to, say, Southwest. You know, they come together and they go to Boston and travel 2-3 hours for some games every Sunday. And I think the camaraderie with what was quite a tight-knit community was good to see. It's definitely, I think, Pittsfield, where I was living, was a population of about 20,000. Yeah. And Perth's the smallest place I've lived in before that, so culturally it was different for me too. Yeah. Sort of being known around town as the guy with the accent, and which came in handy sometimes, but then didn't work out the other times. So, but yeah, I couldn't put it down to one thing, but probably the whole environment, the camaraderie with the players, and I have to say, you know, as someone who's essentially, you know, a guest in the country, the people were great. You know, helped out when if I needed something, and you know, overall it was just a pretty friendly community.
Yeah. Was there any players you coached, any young players you coached that you sort of would say, you know, remember this name, you might see them sort of in the big leagues in the future?
Yeah, there's probably there was a young lady that I coached who's 13, and she's quite talented. There's a 15-year-old kid who's been discovered. He's in the Olympic development program, but he came from my club in Massachusetts. And then I coached a 10-year-old African boy. Yep. And I'll give his name. His name's Daniel Cam. Now he's facing all sorts of challenges, you know, with his particular, you know, family dynamic, but also with where Pittsfield is located and having to travel to Boston if he wants to make the elite squads. Yeah. But this kid is as good as any 10-year-old I've seen, and some probably. So, yeah, there you go. There's a very, very long shot for you.
No, it's good. An easy name to listen, Cam.
That's right, yeah. They're so good they named him twice.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, we'll go to some messages, and after that break we'll be back with some pictures from the State League and some more from Dan. So we'll be back after these.
At Prosperity Strata Management, we exclusively manage strata properties. With 30 years of management experience behind us, our excellent customer service is second to none, and we believe well-kept properties are the key to generating good sales and rental returns. On-site visits to your investment are conducted on a regular basis, with our aim being to see your property improved. For further details, visit our website at prosperitystratamanagement.com.au or call 0499 994 923. Prosperity Strata Management, station sponsor. The Perth Glory Football Club is proud to support WA football and the World Football Program. Stay tuned on 107.9 FM every Saturday from 10 a.m. for the very latest Perth Glory news. A-League, W-League and Youth, glory is ours. Station sponsor.
The team behind FootballWA.net can boast the best independent local football website and football forums in WA. These are sites devoted entirely to promoting the local game and our history. Visit FootballWA.net for the World Football Program guest lineup every Friday. Radio Fremantle, recognising volunteers who support football in the local community.
Well, there are lots of memories, and I should mention that all this came as a surprise to me, which the viewers may not be aware of, but it's a very, very nice touch. Look, it's been 34 years of doing this on SBS, and it's all been a mission, really. As you know, you're in fact part of that mission now. So it has to be measured on how much of that mission has been fulfilled. And in terms of where Australian football is, where football is within the hearts of Australians, I think that I'm happy with where those things are now compared to where they were in 1980 when we first started. A whole generation of Australians have grown up with SBS and SBS's football coverage, and those who have and who were born after that scarcely realise what Australia was like before SBS came along and brought all this beautiful football into their lounge rooms, and eventually contributed to Australia becoming a true citizen of the world.
Les Murray again with some thoughts on SBS and the impact SBS and his program had on the game in Australia. And, you know, I can remember when the Glory were in the NSL standing there on the terraces with a voice singing, "We want SBS." So, yeah, look, a massive impact on the game and how the game has grown in the media. And I think, you know, when you look at what we have now, a lot of this we all owe to what Les and Johnny Warren put together back in the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was generally as the Channel 7 cameras were going past.
Yes,
So,
yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's where it is now, and we've got world quality teams, world quality players, albeit women. No, it's great. I think it's fantastic.
Yep.
You know, it really is putting pressure on the male dominance of this sport to lift their game now and go, well, you know, the ladies are doing it.
Yeah.
Brazil have been a powerhouse in women's football for years. It's well and truly over. New girls in the room, look out. All right, First Division, very tight at the top, very tight at the bottom, and apart from one club, everyone's in with a shot.
Yeah, everyone's got something to go for.
Yeah.
So last week in the First Division, UWA Nedlands hosted Ashfield and won 1-0. Gosnell City and Dianella White Eagles played out a 0-0 draw. Fremantle City travelled down to Southwest Phoenix. Southwest Phoenix winning that one 3-1.
With 8 players?
With 8 players?
At the end, yeah.
Okay.
And no coach, I don't think.
Yeah.
Got more details on that?
A bit card happy, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joondalup City travelled to Rockingham City and came away with a 2-1 win. And Western Knights and Forestfield United played out a 1-1 draw. Canning City had the bye. Coming up today, Canning City travel to Joondalup City. Dianella White Eagles are at home against Rockingham City. Ashfield, as we discussed, play host to Western Knights. Forestfield United are at home against Southwest Phoenix. And Fremantle City are at home against Gosnell City with no match for UWA Nedlands.
And just about any one of those games, any of those sides could win.
Yeah.
Canning, you know, despite their league position, aren't a bad side.
Yeah.
They've not had a lot of good luck along the way, but hopefully if they can keep they've got a young team, if they can keep that together next season, they'll be a dominant side in Division 2.
Yep. Well, looking at the table, the top 4, they're only separated by 1 win. So Western Knights on 27, Southwest on 26, Forestfield and Dianella both on 24. And down at the other end of the table, Rockingham on 19, Ashfield on 19, Joondalup City on 16, Gosnells and Fremantle both on 15. So it's very close. And then down in 11th place, Canning City with 5 points and probably going to drop. Barring a miracle.
Barring a miracle, yeah. But they're still capable, and, you know, they're up there at Joondalup. Well, Joondalup are playing at their ground today, so they're in a chance.
Yeah. Well, nothing to lose for them.
And in Division 2?
In Division 2, last week, Gwelup Croatia travelled to Melville City and had a 4-0 win. Balga won 3-1 at home against Kelmscott Roos. Curtin Uni won at home against Shamrock Rovers 4-1. Kingsway Olympic travelled to Wanneroo City and had a 3-1 win. And Quinns FC played host to Swan United and won that one 3-1. Morley Windmills had the bye. Coming up today, Melville City travel to Kingsway Olympics. Swan United are at home against Balga. Shamrock Rovers are at home against Morley Windmills. Curtin Uni travel to Gwelup Croatia. And Wanneroo City travel to Kelmscott Roos with Quinns FC having the bye. Looking at the table there, Gwelup Croatia well out on top on 35 points. Morley second, 35 points. Yeah, Morley second on 29 points. Down at the other end of the table, it's quite close in the middle. We've got Swan United 5th on 17, Kingsway Olympic on 16, Balga on 16, Melville on 15, Curtin on 15, Quinns on 14, and then Shamrock down the bottom on 10.
And although it sounds like, 6 points ahead is a good thing, we've got to remember there is a bye in this league.
That's right.
So provided Morley can keep winning and do the right thing, it closes it down to 3.
Yeah, should put out. Morley's played one less game than Gwelup as well.
Yeah, so it's, again, very tight at the top.
Yep.
Good to see. Now, obviously, Danny, you've come back off the plane, and Cass has obviously plied you with enough beers at the airport to get you committed to Morley.
It wasn't far off. It's a club I used to play for. I played 3 years there. Enjoyed my time. Knew John Castrilli from the Ashfield days.
Yeah.
I played under him there. And maintained the relationship with John over the years. He's a true football man.
And he also had his probably his on-field assistant, looking for an exit out because he's now at Fremantle.
Well, that had happened before I came in, but I'm not sure of the specifics there, but I think they remain good friends. So,
absolutely. Well, look, Mark's always wanted to coach.
Yeah, and I think good on him. I don't think even if he were at Morley, I'm sure Cass wouldn't be someone to hold him back. If he gets offered a first team job in a higher league, then good luck to him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so you're now back there. You're the assistant coach with Cass.
Yep.
What do you make of the division? Because obviously, when you left, second division, they really just started up and was kind of like just a.
Well, I coached Melville in the first 2 years.
Of course, yeah. Now you've had good experience.
The first season was from memory, it was a 7-team league.
Yeah.
And UWA had run away with it. But if I look back and compare those first 2 years with now, it's worlds apart. Just with the quality, I think the game's evolved as it does. But I also think the division is attracting perhaps better players than it did 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And people cynical might say, well, people are putting money into it, etc. And maybe that's true, but I think that the standard of football is improving, and I think it makes your phone call as a coach a bit easier to say, hey, come down, have a look, see what we've got.
Absolutely.
It's not miles away from an NPL standard.
No, and when you look at the results in the FFA Cup, there were Division 1 and Division 2 clubs right in it up to the last 8. So, and then with a State League club winning it. So, really, the gap has closed. What's your opinion of the NPL? Have you seen any games since you've been back? Or
I haven't seen any games, so excuse me, I can't really comment. I guess with the visa restrictions and there's no age restrictions, but with the points, effectively there is. Obviously, that's another reason why some players who are perhaps on the fringes are dropping down. But then I guess that's part of the plan.
I would call that as well, because I think if you look at it, Western Knights were asked that question the other day. They've got 2 visa players. I know from our perspective at Ashfield, our team would meet the points. Forestfields would.
But I mean that potentially those visa players may have stayed in the NPL. But obviously they can't, or clubs don't want to have 5-6 visa players and put them in the reserves.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's a positive.
Yeah, it is a positive.
It strengthens the underpinning leagues. And I've definitely enjoyed being back amongst it. The standard's been probably better than I thought it would be.
Yeah. I'd forgotten you coached Melville for 2 years.
Yeah.
So very qualified to give an opinion. Now obviously Guelph are out in front. You're busily chasing them. Who else is out there? Kingsway.
It looks as though it's a 2-horse race. I can honestly say that I'm a tough one to ask because I've only seen the games that I've been back for.
Yeah.
So there are some teams that I still haven't seen. I went and watched my good friends at Guelph last week. And for me, they're the best footballing side in the league. They beat Melville, and Melville weren't poor on the day.
No.
But they played well and deserved the points, so they're in the box seat. We've got to keep picking up points. We've got to get the result against them and then hope that they slip up, really. But obviously, just concentrating on our own stuff at the moment.
Yeah, and now that Paul Dundo's coaching them.
Yep, and Terry's there as well, Terry Goddard. So it's
2 people you know very well.
Yes, yeah, it's made for some good text banter, I would say. And at the moment, I'm coming off second best.
With those 2, you always will, mate. just don't bite.
Yeah.
So you're impressed with the change in quality. What are your opinions on State League sides fielding under 18s? I know there's been lots of problems with different clubs over different years, and this year's no different to any other.
I think clubs with, and my point's a general one. I'm probably not across all the specifics.
Yeah.
But clubs without juniors in every age group are going to find it a battle every year to get players. And, you know, as you know.
Well, I don't, because we normally get 60 try lists, but yeah.
No, but, you know, it's still a question of who's turned up. There's without a sort of 14s, 15s, 16s, there's less.
No planned.
And you know, Morley, we're in the same position with that. From what I understand, Swan are having some difficulties. But in Morley's case, and I can't speak for Swan, but in Morley's case, invested in a technical director as such this season, and from what I understand, the numbers are up. So I think, and not just Morley, but clubs in the same position need to be doing the same.
Yeah.
Because I think without an influx of juniors, or at least a relationship with the school or local community clubs, it can be a bit of a challenge every year.
And do you think partnerships are the way to go, or?
I would say whatever it takes. I think to start a youth club from scratch, or to expect to get 5 teams, 6 teams turn up on your doorstep is very challenging. So yeah, I would look at partnerships. There's a lot of good community clubs that have no desire to be state league clubs, you know, which is fine. They've sort of got their niche, but obviously they've potentially still producing players that want to play at a higher or more competitive level. So
absolutely. And I think the other thing is that we've got to acknowledge that there are clubs out there, Gosnells, Ashfield, UWA, who have very good youth programs developing senior players. And when you look at people like Ishmael, who been knocked back, turned over from NPL clubs, goes and plays in the State League club, blossoms. Now he's playing first team. Johnny, who played at Ashfield, he's done the same thing. He's gone through a very unfashionable route, ended up at Coburn playing in their first team after spending 2 or 3 seasons in our Resis after coming out of the 18. So the development of a senior player does not necessarily follow that NPL pathway. And I think sometimes with the State League, and particularly Division 2, a younger player is exposed to those bigger bodies and some very experienced players. I mean, Mark Anthony was playing at Morley at the start of the season.
Yep.
You know, what a great tuition period. An hour and a half tuition from Mark would be great for a young midfielder coming through.
Yeah, if they could understand him, I think it'd be good.
As long as he doesn't try and tell them anything, because the subtitles are also available in English.
But I spoke to some of the boys at training. I haven't really seen Mark since I've been back, but yeah, that was the feedback I got, that to have him, join in at training even with the guys.
But you know yourself as a young bloke, as you came through your football journey, you learnt from being in amongst older players and seeing what they did with the ball and how they approached the game and how they trained. And there's some things you just can't be taught by a coach. You've got to do it on the field and observe another person doing it, and that way you pick it up. And imagine, even if you don't understand a word he's saying, if you've made the stuff up and Mark tells you made the stuff up, you won't do it again.
Yeah, and I'm sure you probably would understand that. But no, of course I'm joking. As you said, it's great. I think the older players teach you a lot. In some ways, they're your best coach, the guy next to you on the field telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And I think when I dropped from the Premier League, I played up to the reserves at Inglewood and dropped down to Division 1. The difference from playing with 22, 23-year-olds in the reserves to playing with now 35-year-olds in the first team.
Yeah.
That have played X amount of league games. You have to pick something up, and if you don't, you're not in the team for very long.
Absolutely. All right. Do we have any results from the
FFA Cup?
FFA Cup, yeah.
FFA Cup, yes. We had 8 games this week. So, as we unfortunately know, Heidelberg United had the 1-0 win over Perth Glory. In the other games, Peninsula Power from Queensland hosted Melbourne City and lost 2-0. Olympic FC from Queensland lost 5-0 to Apia Leichhardt from New South Wales. Western Sydney Wanderers defeated Wellington Phoenix 1-0 after extra time, that goal coming in the 122nd minute of the match. Blacktown City from New South Wales also pulled off a cup set, knocking out Central Coast Mariners. They got up 2-0 quite early. Central Coast pulled it back to 2-2, but Blacktown got the win, 3-2. Moreton Bay United from Queensland knocked out Broadmeadow Magic 4-2 in extra time. Gold Coast United from Queensland, as we know, hosted our Western Knights and won that one 3-1. And Sydney FC set a new club record for an 8-goal win over Darwin Rovers. So I don't think there's too much to be proud of. Well, too much gloating to be done from that. But it's interesting that that's actually a new record for them at 8-0.
But having watched a lot of those games, and you look at the different preparations, and I think Glory were completely underdone. Central Coast looked well prepared but got beat, and Sydney just looked like a machine. Graham Arnold's got them ticking. They look fit. They look buzzing. It's interesting.
Arguably you could say maybe the Northern Territory team of all the teams in the Cup are probably the weakest.
Yeah.
So, having put them against Sydney FC, that's, a real David and Goliath battle.
But, look, we're going into the last 16 now with one WA side.
Same as every year.
Congratulations to Jamie Harmel and the boys from Sorrento flying the flag for the state.
Yep.
Always good to see. But, we'd have liked to.
I would have loved to. I would have loved 3.
Yeah.
Expected 2 in a way, but not to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I suppose from a preparation side of things, as an A-League club, you've got to be thinking last 16. Unless you come up against another A-League club where it could be iffy. But, I think the expectation has got to be we're getting into the last 16.
Yeah.
And particularly if you've got a player who's suspended who, if he does his 2 suspensions in the FFA Cup, he's not going to hurt you in the A-League.
And the other thing is, it's A-League clubs to NPL clubs as much as it's first, second tier. You're still playing predominantly against semi-professional players.
Yeah.
So they might be, Heidelberg obviously at the peak of the season, etc. But still possibly training 2-3 times a week.
And Zara playing for them, ex-Glory. So, you're right. The gap is artificial, but I think the time has come now where, as a A-League club going into that competition, you can't just go, we'll treat it as a warm-up and give the boys a run out, because for these guys, for Heidelberg, that was their cup final.
Yeah.
They were pumped, they wanted it, and it was obvious.
Yeah, well, just going over the history of the FFA Cup, obviously we're in our 4th season now, so we've had 5 times an A-League side's been knocked out of 33 matches, so, just over 1 in 10 times you'll get the cup set up.
More worryingly, none of the sides that have been knocked out by an NPL side have done well the following season.
You could say that, but you could also point out that in the first one, Western Sydney Wanderers were champions of Asia at the time they got knocked out by Adelaide City.
Yeah.
So, that's going the other way.
But I think Sean's league comment remains true.
Adelaide United were the reigning champions.
Particularly in the Western Sydney example.
Got knocked out and finished.
Well, hopefully Perth can buck that trend then.
Can I have to hope,
What was there mystery signings? What was the media on this yesterday? I saw the memes.
Eli Babic was penned or ready to go and has decided to go to Czechoslovakia at the last minute.
As in Eli Babic?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're talking to
that was the unforeseen.
Talking to Peter Filopoulos later, so we'll ask that question. We're going to some messages. We'll be back with Adam Peacock from from Fox Sports after these messages.
The World Football Program welcomes the Australian Mini Football Federation onto Radio Fremantle. Join the growing numbers playing non-traditional forms of football at any of the Area 5 centres around Perth. Find out more on osminifootball.com. Station sponsor.
Oswest Fencing and Wrought Iron. Our family fabricates fence panels, gates and framework. Repairs gates and sets up automated systems. Ring us on 9258 6822 for old-fashioned family service and advice. Station sponsor.
Are you considering data and software development? From a simple website to custom office automation software. Phone Andy at DataPlats on 0414 263 938. That's 0414 263 938. Station sponsor.
Well, I've never been in this job for the money, or for even the security or the career itself. It was all about continuing what I've been doing in Australia since I arrived in Australia, as a little boy refugee at the age of 11, when I went to the schoolyard and started arguing with my classmates about the beauties of the game. I could never understand why so many Australians didn't understand those beauties, didn't appreciate those beauties, and that's why the beauty of the game, or playing football the beautiful way, has been at the centre of what we at SBS have been trying to bring to Australians. People say to us, some people say to us even now, well, why do you advocate a certain style of football and not something else? Because football has many styles. No, there is only one style that's playing the game beautifully that will convert people to football.
And that was, again, Les Murray with his thoughts on the beautiful game and thoughts that have shaped Australian football over the last 30-odd years. So, Adam Peacock's in traffic and can't talk on the phone, otherwise he's going to get fined, and they're pretty mean over there. So we'll call him back shortly. But I suppose the FFA Cup and some of the things that have happened, we've had Glory say, look, we weren't good enough on the day and deserve to be beat. Paul Ocon's come out and said the gap's too wide, even though my side got flogged by a NPL side, the gap's too big. And then you've got Heidelberg saying the gap's closing. And all of that, I suppose, leads into the second tier of the A-League and how that would work. Is it time? Is it financially viable?
Yep.
And that, I suppose, when you look at all the arguments for it, it's the financial viability of such a league that's the problem. And whilst you might be able to do it in Sydney, New South Wales, ACT, Victoria, when the moment you start to involve even Adelaide at a pinch, but as soon as you bring WA into it, the costs start to blow out. There's a lot of airfares involved. It's not jumping on a short flight. It's a long flight. And then, the buses and all that are out. So interesting, but what's your thoughts, Dan?
I think all football people would like to see it, right? I mean, I'd like to see more professional teams. I'd love to see promotion, relegation. I'd love to see a second tier, more opportunity for players, coaches. But I think you're right. The logistics are obviously going to be always challenging with our country, but the financial thing's the big one. If you look at how many A-League clubs have folded in the relatively short existence of the league. It is a challenge. But as I understand, they've got more than a task force. What's their group called? Is it
the AAMC or something?
AFC. And there's some people on there that have got great experience. I'm pretty sure Gary Marocchi
is on it.
One of them in any case. So obviously it's people like those and others that are going to be working out whether it's sustainable or not.
Well, it seems like every week another club's putting their hand up and saying, we're willing to go in for A-League expansion. And the obvious thing would be, well, if they're willing to do that, build a second tier out of those teams. The main thing is, of course, it needs to be financially viable. It's all well and good to say, well, this is how they do it in Europe, so we should do it here.
Of course, and it's not Europe.
We are certainly unique in Australia.
But when you go over to Victoria, New South Wales, a lot of those clubs that are putting their hands up and saying, pick us, we're ready, are teams like Melbourne Knights, South Melbourne, who are all there in the NSL days, who were great. And I think that's the point that we don't have over here, the same level of facilities. There's very few facilities here that can manage that. Now, obviously, Perth and Inglewood would be the two picks. Outside of the NPL, you've got Rockingham and Bunbury, who've got terrific facilities. So, that's got to be part of your equation, because no one wants to sit there on a cold, rainy night.
I to be honest, for this second division, I wouldn't look at putting a West Australian team in unless someone really put their hand up and said, we're willing to do it.
Perth will.
Well, there was also talk a few months ago. I couldn't help but feel it was an April Fool's joke, but Football West said they wanted to put in a second team in the A-League. That was out of the blue, and haven't heard anything of it since then.
No.
I definitely double-checked the calendar on that date.
Was that a Football West release?
Yeah.
They said they wanted to put in a second A-League side.
Yeah, well, obviously they've done the logistics and it's worked.
A whole new argument though whether or not the administrator of your game should be running a club within a competition. That's just problematic. I think.
But from I guess it's no different. It's obviously on a much wider scale, but than the NTC when they used to compete in. So if it's from that perspective, if it's going to be an avenue for players, but then I think even things like if Perth Soccer Club put in, then obviously do they still fulfil their NPL commitments? They probably would have to. So, I think it's a massive task for a club to do it. And as you mentioned, Sean, the big sort of powerhouse old NSL clubs, some of them, still retained membership and have got huge facilities and financially backed.
And the income streams that are not available to sides here, like the Pokies.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you'd have to say, are they on the same level as the clubs here? Then probably not. But I think I'd love to see a WA team if there were a second tier, like probably everyone else. But again, only if it's going to be sustainable.
Yeah, it needs to last. It needs to not just be one of these things where, you go back through the history of football in Australia and West Australia, and you'll see sort of, new leagues form and then they collapse again. And
but I think
number of teams and divisions.
The other point of it is when you're talking about a South Melbourne or a Western Knights, they come with a very passionate backing and fans. They get much larger crowds to their games than we do here. And I just see the danger that, a Perth who would see themselves as being the best placed club, and let's face it, they are, to make that jump, how many people are they going to drag with them?
Yep.
And how many, because we're quite nepotistic in our approach to the game here, and I don't see too many non-involved jumping onto the Perth bandwagon if it's that club that does it.
Yeah. I think the question is, would the rest of the NPL and State League clubs get behind a second team if it were Perth? And I'd like to think so, but then I too am sceptical as to whether that would happen in every instance. So.
Well, if they step up and actually left a spot behind in the NPL, that might encourage the other NPL teams to, push them on.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, I suppose for this state, we've also the NPL reviews coming out, so we're on the cusp of that being released. And that, again, throws up some thoughts about what's happening. We've got Football West now asking for input into, what was it now? I can't remember what they called it.
Strategic planning.
Strategic planning, yeah. And there's been some things thrown up there, which you look at them and you think, oh, yeah, okay, that's a bit odd, but yeah, may work. I've seen one where someone's suggested that you have 3 conferences. One would be the English-based club conference, which would have, mostly teams from Joondalup in it. Then one which was basically, and I can't remember, they called it the Wogs or Dings, and apologies if that sounds wrong, but that's how this person put it, which would be all of your ethnic-based clubs.
Yep.
And then your Aussie clubs.
Skips.
Yeah, the Skips. That's quite interesting because I think...
Who were Melville playing?
Melville were in the Aussies. I found it interesting that Windmills weren't in the ethnic, and they'd been put in the English-based clubs. And I didn't see. Yeah, I thought they would have found offensive.
Colin would be very upset.
And whoever put this together seemed to forget there were clubs called Ashfield and Gosnells and Canning and others that were all currently playing State League and had written them off and thrown in Ellenbrook and other places. But look, it's a thought, it's out there for discussion, but, the NPL is obviously, it's got issues around it. It's not hugely populous by fans, and they're the things we've got to fix.
Yep.
Was that a seriously tabled suggestion?
No, no, it's just on a forum. Yeah, this is just on a forum. Someone says, look, it's my idea. No one said they liked it, but, that's...
No, I love it.
Yeah. I think it's in some ways it has some merit, but not in that particular format. But yeah, I think the NPL does need some kind of shake-up and review, and I don't think we're going to go on with 14 teams, and that in itself is going to be a problem because we're talking about one getting relegated this year and one going up, which means we're already committed to a 14-team league for the following year.
Yep.
And then what happens after that? If the NPL review says it goes down to 8, you're looking at 6 going down.
I'd hate to think it would go down to 8.
I know.
Back
Well,
down to 12.
no. If you talk to some people, they think that's the right number, and that's the establishment clubs.
But
if you like
that would
to
be a 14-match season unless you start doubling up your fixtures, where you sort of play each
play
team
around
4
three
times
maybe.
Four times.
Yeah. Well, that's the theory. But what they're saying is that
Well, we've seen that with the A-League.
This has diluted the quality of the league, and this is why people aren't coming back to it. So it's an interesting concept. I think probably a 12-team league is the optimum.
Yep.
I think when you look at what happened in the first division and the second division, more than sustainable. The quality in the first and second divisions has risen.
Yep.
And the NPL has appeared to have stagnated somewhat. And some of the things that they've tried, I don't think have worked. You've got clubs that you say sending older players and visa players off for points and the rules of the league program, and they're lobbing up in first and second division teams, and they're hanging on to youth players who probably wouldn't have made it through. So
I think it's a tough one, and all these things are done with the right intentions or the best intentions of trying to grow the game, and I think the idea was to promote the youth and have them playing and getting games where otherwise they were being left out. But you're right, they still have to be quality players. It can't just be you're 19, you've got a spot on the first team now, you're young, we're going to go with you.
And some good things have come from it, because now a lot of those youth players that were in the Glory program when the NPL started have gone through, they've been through the Glory training program, and they're not moved on to the next level. So they're now peeling back into the state league. So there's a lot of good players going back to either their clubs of origin or splitting out into other clubs, so that there is some quality going back in. And as much as people complained about the Glory doing what they're doing, I think it's actually starting to benefit the league now, and will continue to do so.
Well, the reality is that they're only going to retain however many they're going to retain.
Yeah.
And then when you're releasing players that have had more exposure in what you would hope is a more professional environment, training more.
Yeah.
You hope that when they come into the state league environments with their various teams, that they help raise the standard, as you said.
Yeah.
And it is nice to see it. There's a few examples that I've seen from around the place. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, local news, I suppose, again, we're looking at the local stuff is good, but some significant stuff happening around the world. Tomorrow is the Charity Shield, which will be Arsenal versus Chelsea. Your thoughts on the result there?
I think Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then again, it's a cup, so Wenger likes to get points in cups, and he likes to keep his jobs for cups. Yeah, I was talking last night with someone. It's a hard league to predict now.
It is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it all kicks off the following week with the Premier League on the 12th. So some interesting matchups there. Newly promoted Newcastle will have their first game. Who are they playing? Tottenham. So not an easy match for them. Tottenham did very well last year, and we're looking to do that. The only bad news for anyone in that one is that with the resurgence of Newcastle back into the Premier League, Chelsea will lose 40,000 fans.
And you've got to get used to Mike Ashley jumping around.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Shirtless as he does in the crowd.
Yeah, no, that's a vision I want out of my head right now, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think West Ham start their game with an away game to Manchester, so United. So, and some good signings throughout the season for different clubs.
Yep, potentially not Tottenham, but I saw. I'm interested to see how Chicharito is going to go at West Ham. I'm not sure United should have sold him when they did. But I think he's an out-and-out finisher. And if you look to your bench, I think he'd be someone that you'd love to bring off your bench for 15, 20 minutes if you're struggling to score.
Yeah. And a number of Aussies now that's starting to creep back in both the first division and the championship. I think Daniel Vukovic had a run out the other day. So all starting to come together. But the football machine will kick into gear next week when the the Championship League starts next week, along with the Charity Shield and all the lower divisions.
Yeah.
I think they all kick off the first week, so my beloved Southend United will be into it again. So, yeah, I'll be trolling the
Shrimpers.
The mighty Shrimpers, get it right.
Oh, the mighty Shrimpers, sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah, looking forward to the European season kicking off and, of course, the A-League kicking off, and hopefully we can get our stuff together so we can actually be competitive. All right, I will try young Adam again, and hopefully he's managed to get himself off the freeway, and we'll be back after these.
At Prosperity Strata Management, we exclusively manage strata properties. With 30 years of management experience behind us, our excellent customer service is second to none, and we believe well-kept properties are the key to generating good sales and rental returns. On-site visits to your investment are conducted on a regular basis, with our aim being to see your property improved. For further details, visit our website at prosperitystratamanagement.com.au or call 0499 994 923. Prosperity Strata Management, station sponsor.
The World Football Program welcomes the Australian Mini Football Federation onto Radio Fremantle. Join the growing numbers playing non-traditional forms of football at any of the Area 5 centres around Perth. Find out more on osminifootball.com. Station sponsor.
Rachel Pepper, illustration and design for print and web. Contact Rachel at rachelpepper.com. Station sponsor.
The team behind footballwa.net can boast the best independent local football website and football forums in WA. These are sites devoted entirely to promoting the local game and our history. Visit footballwa.net for the World Football Program guest lineup every Friday. Radio Fremantle, recognising volunteers who support football in the local community.
Oh, and he's hung up on me again. Marvellous. All right, I'll try again.
Right, in the meantime, we can go through some... You all right?
Yep.
Okay, in the meantime, we've got a bit of an echo happening here.
Yeah, I'm just chopping that out.
Okay, we're good?
Yep.
All right. We'll go through the Sunday amateur leagues. So in the Premier League, Kingsley won 3-0 away to Ellenbrook United. Hammersley Rovers and Belmont Villa played out a 2-2 draw. North Perth United put 9 past the Perth Royals. BB United lost 4-0 at home to Leeming Strikers. Subiaco AFC Amateurs travelled to Kwinana and came away with a 2-1 win. And Wimbley Downs defeated Southern Spirit 2-0. Coming up tomorrow, we've got North Perth United at home against BB United. Leeming Strikers hosting Wimbley Downs. Hammersley Rovers travelling to Southern Spirit. Kingsley at home against Kwinana. Perth Royals at home against Subiaco AFC Amateurs. And Belmont Villa travelling to Ellenbrook United. So looking at the table there, Wimbley Downs top of the table, 39 points, 13 wins and 1 loss. Kingsley in second, 34 points, and North Perth United third on 33 points. Down the bottom end of the table, in 10th place, Hammersley Rovers have 10 points, Perth Royals 9 points, and BB United sitting last on 0 points. And I think we're all good.
We are all good. The wonders of live radio. On the air, I have with me Adam Peacock of Fox Sports. Adam, good morning. How are you?
Morning, guys. Sorry about that. I was busy ferrying people around after football this morning over here.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier once they got licences either, trust me. Obviously, you've been watching the FFA Cup, the round of 32 over the last week. Some real good cup sets and some really terrific games over the last week. You've been at a couple?
Yeah, I went to Wellington and Western Sydney Wanderers, which was very forgettable. And the game on Wednesday night was at Palm Beach City in Western Knights, actually, from your neck of the woods. So that was enjoyable. Western Knights had a good crack. I mean, they're going okay for a club that's in the second div over there in the state league. But they gave as much as they could, but just in the end, at such a class, Gold Coast City, and in particular Joe Kyle, their striker, who, in my opinion, couldn't get a place in an A-League club. He's real quality striker, some neat finishing from him, and that got the job done again.
Yeah, he was on the books with Sydney, I believe, but he's certainly worth a look.
Absolutely, yeah. some strikers on certain teams get a run, and you think, well, how? When you compare it to someone like him. So remains to be seen if he can flourish in that environment. He's obviously enjoying his football on the Gold Coast, and he's working in the family business as well. So I think he's got that football work balance spot on, obviously, and he's a damn good player.
Oh, absolutely. Looked very happy. Now, a couple of A-League clubs got dumped out. Your thoughts on those?
Yeah, well, by this time next week, we could just have 5 A-League clubs left in the round of 16. That's not to say we're going to have a couple of member federation sides playing the semi-finals, aside from just the one, given the draws fixed to have at least one, which I don't mind the idea of at the moment. I know some people think that it's a bit of a farce that we have to fix the draw, but I like the fact that there's that incentive for the member federation clubs, because now it gets hard for them. They finish their regular season, or just about to finish their regular season. The team that don't make the finals, they're still playing cup. They could be playing cup 2 months later. It's damn hard to keep everyone together for a semi-professional outfit. But yeah, Heidelberg are flying in the Victorian Premier League, and they duly dumped out Perth Glory. I didn't see much of the match. I saw the goal, and I spoke to a few people at it. Apparently Heidelberg deserved to put a few more past Perth. And Central Coast, I mean, they had all the possession against Blacktown City, but Blacktown City got their structure just right against a team that was obviously going to have the glut of possession and hit them on the draw a couple of times on the counter and played well and fully deserved their victory. So they're 2 big clubs in the NPL. Blacktown City, they're always there or thereabouts in New South Wales, and Heidelberg there or thereabouts in Victoria. But they got the job done, and just that, sprinkling of magic on the cup.
And one A-League club that looks like they just picked up where they left off, Sydney.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's hard to judge, because Darwin Rovers, I was at the Darwin Rovers match against Brisbane Strikers last year, and Brisbane, I think, put 5 past them. I was tipping 10 for Sydney. It's really hard to line up Sydney, but yeah, they've got the majority of their squad together. They've got a couple more. The big loss for them is Ryan Brandt, who did his ACL a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're looking okay. I mean, that was what I expected the other night, and they'll build from that.
Yeah, they did extremely well. Looked very fit and very focused. Quite the opposite to Glory, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I can't imagine it's a great thing that Roston Griffiths, I don't know what it says about how things are going over there at the club, that Roston Griffiths, okay, financially gets a great offer, but I would have thought the lifestyle, and if he was really enjoying his football here, 100%, he'd stick around, because Perth Glory weren't that far off. You're playing with a magician like Diego Castro, got Mitch Nichols come to the club, which is a great get. That's a bit of a weird one for me, but good on Roston Griffiths. If it's purely financial, and I'm talking BS right now, I'll put my hand up and apologise, but financially it's a very good move for him, but he can have that in Tashkent in the middle of winter over there. I'll take Perth in December any day of the week.
Yeah, I suppose the other thing is, when you look at it from that perspective, what does it say for Australian football, when we can lose a player of that quality to the powerhouse of Uzbekistan?
Yeah. The beauty of football, and for the A-League, it's a bit of a strength and weakness thing. One of your greatest strengths is the fact that it's a world market, and you can go anywhere to find any player that you want to, pretty much, at a certain price. And it's your weakness as well, because it means that any other club in the world can like the look of a player, and if they offer him the right price, well, he's off. So I don't mind it too much. I mean, Glory will hunt, and they'll find someone good enough to replace Roston Griffiths if they get it right. I mean, no guarantees in that, because Roston's a damn good player. But I don't mind it too much if players do it. But I think it'd be horrible if every single one of them all of a sudden left at once. Yeah. That's not going to happen. The A-League's too established for that now.
But they've got a couple of good guys coming through, and picks up a very good lad from Liverpool in Bruce. But Brandon Wilson is and was certainly looking like the apprentice last year, and he's stepping up.
Yeah, consistency was his problem. I saw him play a couple of games and he was outstanding. And then I remember one night at Amy Park, he had a really rough night. So for those young players, consistency at the A-League level. And Jake Brimmer, we'll see what he's about. I mean, Brendan Rodgers fell in love with him immediately and took him to Liverpool 3 years ago. So now he gets a chance to see senior football in front of our eyes and on television every week. It's something that's underestimated sometimes, that all these games, the guys who play in the Championship in League One, they're not on telly every week, only the highlights, but all the games are on all the time over here. So that's something to take into consideration.
And given that he technically got off 2 aeroplanes and then just got on the park with a bunch of people he hardly knows, wasn't a bad debut.
Yeah, as I said, I didn't see the game.
No.
So I can't comment on how he played. I'll leave it over to you. Your sort of game, and just by saying that, getting off a plane is undoubtedly improvements to come when he gets acclimatised.
So you weren't tempted by the peacock burgers?
Good.
Oh, great bit of banter.
Yeah, it had a whole, it was just had a whole heap of crap on it, that burger, and it was well named.
Now, obviously, the best news that we've had this week in football is the Matildas, and for us West Australians, Sam Kerr, and in my opinion, pound for pound, the best player in the world right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to say no. Certainly best Australian footballer. Man, child, woman, whatever. The best thing I can say about the Matildas, and I put it out in a tweet yesterday, is that they have all the ingredients of a team that you want representing your nation every single time. And they have the ingredients of a team that you want. Doesn't matter what sport it is, you want that Australian team to be like that. They've got the mix of skill and graft. I mean, I noticed in the 93rd minute yesterday they're winning 6-1 against Brazil, and the wingers were still tracking back to chase the Brazilian fullback to get in front of them and make an important tackle. So they've got that graft. They've got that skill. I mean, we saw it. In that final third, they look like they were going to score every single time. They're humble, but they're confident in their own ability. And the coaching from Alan Sajic and his crew, absolutely outstanding. Bang on tactics. Walk away with a major trophy, which what it was, given the opposition, Japan, USA and Brazil. It's just a joy to watch. The whole thing's just a joy to watch. And I'm really looking forward to the matches that the Matildas are playing in Sydney and Newcastle in September against Brazil.
Yeah, world number 1, Asian number 1, and Brazil. And, you know, any team that can beat Brazil 6-1 in anything is doing extremely well.
I mean, for every single youth coach of girls around the country, how good is that? To just have to, you basically have to just get a DVD of that or download it and just show your girls, this is what we want you to be. You don't have to, we don't want that to change at all. It's just the attacking intent, the mindset of the players as well. Alana Kennedy was totally unsung in that first game, especially against the USA. How she defended, so they can do it all. It's just a matter of putting it on. I mean, we sit here and say how easy it looked. It's obviously they made it look easy. That was the best thing about it. There was obviously a lot of work goes into it, and the players' development as well. And you've got to applaud every single player on that pitch, and how they were developed. Their youth coaches should take enormous credit out of how those players have developed. Like Sam Kerr, who every time she gets the ball, you see the defender think, oh no, this is taking months off the end of my life because it's causing so many problems at the moment.
You have to work damn hard to make it look that easy. And I think before the tournament, Stadge got some criticism because he brought some squad players in who are very young. But right now he's ticking all the boxes.
There's no way in the world you can criticise that guy right now.
Absolutely not.
I find it absolutely impossible to find fault with anything he's doing.
Yeah.
And if he had the timing right, his contract would be up in about 6 months' time, and he should be going to FFA headquarters and saying, how about it, guys? Because, he's the man to take us to that, and I'm sure he's locked into the next World Cup cycle.
Absolutely.
Take us to that next Asian Cup, next World Cup, because anything is possible with these girls.
All right, Adam, we've got run out of time really to talk. I could talk to you all day about football. But one thing before I do, how happy are you that your beloved Newcastle are back in the Premier League?
Talk to me in about 2 months' time. If we're 0-8, I reckon I'll be where I was about 2 seasons ago. But no, it's good. It's the competitive environment that you want to be in as a fan for your fans. You don't want to be, with all due respect to all the teams in the Championship or League One or League Two, you want to be with the big boys, and a club like Newcastle with 50,000 supporters going every week really does belong in that realm. So, but nothing's given, nothing's handed to you, especially in the Premier League. And Benitez really does need 3 or 4 more signings because that squad is looking a bit thin for Premier League standards at the moment.
Certainly is. All right, Adam, all the best. We will talk to you in 2 or 3 months' time and see how the Black and Whites are going. But thank you very much for your time and for stopping your busy taxi duties to talk to us.
All good.
Thanks, mate.
I'll speak to you soon. Have a good day.
See ya.
Cheers.
Okay, Adam Peacock and The Life of a Taxi Driver. Anyone with young kids knows exactly what it's like. Got to ferry them everywhere. It doesn't get any easier. All right, so back to the show. I think he's touched on a couple of good things there about Ant Stajic and his team. And you're right, the youth development through women's has really been the strongest part. Ellie Carpenter's come through, still very, very young. Sam Kerr at 22, 23, just phenomenal. But, 8 years ago when you saw her play, you knew she had what it took. Saw her when she was playing at Ashfield a couple of seasons back, and just phenomenal footballer. I like watching the women now. I'm a convert.
And he seemed to have got the best out of Lisa Devana as well. You'd have to say in the twilight of her career, and I know she's a local girl, but it's...
And she's playing out of an NPL side.
Yeah. And it's fair to say she's... there's been some troubles with her previously in fitting in with group dynamics, and in that I should rephrase that, coaches have had trouble, I think, with a management perspective. But you don't hear of any of that at the moment. It seems like a happy camp, and I guess beating Brazil 6-1 tends to gloss over any grumbles that there might have been. But the dynamic's a good one. He wasn't, I think when he took the job, maybe those in the FFA thought he was the sure thing, but a lot of people weren't 100% if he was the right man. And there can't be any doubters left.
Exactly. You can't have any complaints after you've beaten Brazil 6-1.
Yep. I'd say any team that can beat any team in Brazil 6-1 is a very good side. So the Ladies Leagues?
Yeah, the Ladies League. So in the Women's State League Premier last week, we had Queen's Park SC defeated Bassendean Caledonian 5-1, and Balcatta FC defeated Beckenham Angels by the same margin. East Fremantle had a bye. So obviously there's been a fair bit of contraction in the league there. Coming up tomorrow, we've got Bassendean Caledonian travelling to Northern Redbacks, Queen's Park SC travelling to Beckenham Angels, East Fremantle at home against Balcatta, with the Football West NTC women having the bye. So the ladder is Queen's Park on top with 33 points, Northern Redbacks second on 28, and Balcatta third on 17 points. Football West NTC on 15, East Fremantle on 10, Beckenham on 9, and Bassendean Caledonian in last place on 2 points. So for the State League Division 1, last week Wanneroo City defeated Leeming Strikers 10-2.
Ooh.
So it's a big margin, but it's unusual you get a team lose by such a big margin and still score 2 on their own. Bunbury travelled to Curtin Uni and had a 2-0 win, and Subiaco hosted Stirling Panthers winning that one 1-0. Coming up tomorrow, Leeming Strikers are at home against Stirling Panthers, Wanneroo City at home against Bunbury, and UWA Netherlands travelling to Curtin Uni, with Subiaco having the bye. Table there is Wanneroo's first on 31 points, Stirling second on 25, UWA Netherlands third on 23, Bunbury on 20, Leeming on 11, Subiaco on 4, and Curtin Uni on 1.
You had some involvement with the NTC a while ago, didn't you?
No, I worked with the what used to be the old academy programs, which was under that, and a little bit with the SAP as well.
Okay, and you're still doing a bit of coaching for Football West these days, or you?
I've done a couple of coaching courses since I've been back. I did a game training course at Girraween, and it was largely the Mirrabooka Jaguar players, or a lot of the players and committee members there. Predominantly African community, which is great. I think, reaching different communities and having them licensed now as accredited coaches. So I've done that, and I did a grassroots course, but ticking along, doing bits and pieces as they come up.
All right. And you doing anything else as far as work goes? Because you were...
Absolutely nothing. No.
Okay.
Have you got a job?
Trust me, where I am, you don't want to work.
No, I'm always looking.
Yeah,
always
okay.
looking.
So anyone who wants to employ a decent young man, get in touch with the program, and we'll give you Dan's number. And anyone who knows Dan knows how good he is. So you're just living off your fortunes you made in America.
Yeah, obviously multi-million-dollar contract, so I haven't had to do much for a while.
All right, we'll be back after these messages with the CEO of Perth Glory, Peter Filopoulos, and we'll talk about one or two things that happened this week. And we'll be back after these.
Oswest Fencing and Wrought Iron. Our family fabricates fence panels, gates and framework. Repairs gates and sets up automated systems. Ring us on 9258 6822 for old-fashioned family service and advice. Station sponsor.
Are you considering data and software development? From a simple website to custom office automation software. Phone Andy at DataPlats on 0414 263 938. That's 0414 263 938. Station sponsor.
Gate and Fence Hardware WA are your local business, supplying materials, components and parts for fencing and gates. Practical and simple how-to advice by our family. Product shipped anywhere. Visit our online store at gateandfencehardware.com.au. Station sponsor.
Well, it was firstly about bringing the awareness to Australians about football, its global importance, its global relevance, the fact that it's the only true international language in the world, and its beauties, and what is its essence, what is its soul. Johnny Warren, who was an Australian dinky-die, born there, unlike me, understood that, as well as me or any foreigner who blew into the country. And that's why he was such a good translator, interpreter of the game in Australia. But the awareness really started to come when we started broadcasting the World Cup, because only the World Cup showcases to the world and to its audiences just how big football is, how relevant it is to the world, how important it is. So while people may not have said that football or soccer is the greatest game of all, they all had to understand and had to accept that it's the most important game in the world.
Again, Les Murray with his thoughts on football, and just a reminder of how much we miss the guy. Just tried ringing Peter, he's not answering his phone, so we will try it again very shortly. But in the meantime, women's football, the ladies' Premier League and First Division, there's been a bit of a drop-off there. I think there's...
It's a pity with, like, we were just talking about how well the Matildas are doing and as a growth thing then, and yet you look at our local leagues and, you know, the Premier League's got 7 teams and the First Division's got 7 teams. So there has been some talk in the past as to whether that's the AFL moving in with the women's competition has maybe taken a few players across.
You know what, I wouldn't have thought so, but no? I can't say, obviously, without looking at the statistics. I think with the Women's League, the question is, if you expand it, is the quality there to have a state league competition? And there are others far more qualified than me to answer that. But I would say that it certainly doesn't have the same depth as the men's game.
Yeah, I thought two divisions each with 7 teams, you wonder whether or not you're better off with one bigger division. 12 to 14.
It's a thought. Yeah. Anyway, on the line, I do have with me Peter Filopoulos, the CEO of Perth Glory. Peter, good morning. How are you?
Morning, all. How are you?
Good, thank you. I need to start off with the big loss this week. And what's your best Les Murray story?
Oh, look, it was disappointing in a number of fronts. But... when you think about it, you're coming up against opposition that are peaking after 22 rounds. Quality side, NPL Victoria is probably the strongest NPL in Australia. And we're at our pre-season, strongly preparing. There's probably 4 or 5 first-team players missing from the squad. Having said that, very disappointing. It's not good enough. I think Kenny has been on record saying it's not good enough.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it was 11 against 11, I think it's an opportunity to take stock of that loss and review it and prepare to rectify any of the issues they've identified on field.
Yeah, look, there was a few things in that. I think my original question, though, about loss was related to Les Murray.
Let's be clear on that, though. You play that game in 5 or 6 weeks' time, it'd be a completely different outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think where you were in your pre-season, the player recruitment, there's a lot of reasons as to why. And then when you look at where Heidelberg were, they were obviously up for it. How did you take it yourself? I mean, obviously being a South Melbourne supporter, losing to the Burgers is not something you tolerate too easily.
Yeah, no, especially with South Melbourne, dominating Heidelberg for a long period of time. Not something I wanted to see, quite frankly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rivalry there between. I'm a life member of South Melbourne. I think someone from Heidelberg suggested I buy a membership at Heidelberg, and I quickly reminded them I'm a life member of South Melbourne. And, now a personal CEO, so that's not going to happen too soon. Anyway, we move on and let's hope we prepare and finalise our squad as the weeks progress.
Yeah, and I suppose the things that haven't really helped is losing Rostin Griffiths to the team in Uzbekistan on the eve of that game. Didn't help, and also you had your projected announcement yesterday for 2 signings, which hasn't eventuated. So obviously there's some other things going on in the background that we're not aware of.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk to you about those things as well. It's obviously Rostin came for us this week, and he sees it as an opportunity for himself to go and play for Uzbekistan. Whether we agreed or not, that's something he wanted to do. And we're not in the job of talking players out of what they want to do. He was hell bent to do that. We came to the party and let him out of his contract, which will open up a spot for someone else, which we're in the market for at the moment looking to replace him. As for the announcement, there was a couple of announcements we wanted to make. One is a foreign player, and the primary reason why we had to pull the announcement was that the visa application, wasn't quite finalised or as we expected it to be by the end of the week. We did have indications that it would be finalised, but a couple of new requirements have come into play with the new foreign visa laws, and we've had to obviously pull that announcement to make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's. So nothing that won't happen, but I think it's you'd rather tick off all the boxes and make sure everything works before you announce it.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree.
So with the foreign player, we are still expecting that you'll make the announcement in the near future.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. That's definitely on the cards. We just want to make sure that we tick all the boxes with the sports visa application. And
yep.
I don't need to tell you guys that a lot of that has changed over the last few months. The government's view and how they see visas working in the near future. So just a couple of complications. We just need to make sure that we tick the boxes.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the Aussie player, the striker, was that Eli Babic?
Well, it's been reported. That was. We were having kind of discussions with Eli Babal, which were, quite advanced. I'm happy to report he's decided to stay in Czech Republic, wherever it is, and we move on. Sometimes things happen for a reason. Sometimes they're a good reason, and we'll just go back to doing what we're doing and recruiting for what we need.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the point. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to get people on board. And I suppose it's important that you keep that news rolling because, you are an avid tweeter and you do answer everything on the tweets. And I suppose you've got some questions now about who we're signing and where we are in our pre-season preparation. We've got a very small window now, and all of that then directly ties into memberships and people committing to the club. And you did such a fantastic job of it last year.
Yeah, look, I think I'm still very upbeat about our prospects. I think we've got 18 or 19 players locked away. I think we're maybe 2 or 3 players light still that we're looking at the moment, which could include a couple of young boys as well. So I think it's an opportunity for us to build the next generation of players. I've been a big fan of that. I'm excited to see Joe Knowles get his first professional contract. We've got some young Socceroos that have come back to the centre of excellence we need to look at.
Yep.
We've got a couple of visa spots, and we've just got to be strategic. I think the fans, reading the social sentiment, they're getting a bit anxious, and I understand they're getting anxious, but I think we've got to believe in the process, and and I believe in the process at the moment, and see how our squad gets finalised over the coming weeks, and hopefully that tells a tale for the fans.
And there was a couple of highlights in the game. Young Steins with a terrific run, just showed some endeavour when we needed it. And also to have a young man fly out from England straight onto another aeroplane to the other side of this nation to then pitch up and put in a good shift is a good sign for a 19-year-old, and he's obviously a quality player.
No, absolutely, and that's what we're trying to do, is build the next generation, as I said to you. And you need to find the right balance in your team of just some, young players emerging and experienced. So that's what we're trying to balance at the moment.
And your message to the fans out there who are sitting on the fence waiting to commit to a membership?
I think jump on board. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, and I think we're going to be an entertainment football club. Our front third is really exciting. We're going to torment teams. I think you look at Taggart, Keogh, and Castro up front. Once we announce the visa player that we're trying to secure and finalise at the moment, people will still be an attack football club, and we're going to torment opposition teams, and, we're going to entertain at NIB Stadium. Jump on board. We need everyone's support to make this happen, and we can't do it on our own.
And you've got a very good attacking midfielder in Mitch Nichols, and I think the club's to be commended, because in a time when no one else would touch him, the young man needed a second chance. And I think, he'll be appreciative of that opportunity when a lot of people wouldn't touch him.
Look, there's a lot of commentary around that. And as a father of a 21-year-old and a 9-year-old, and in the new world of, a democratised opinion through social media, there's been a lot said and done. But at the end of the day, everyone deserves a second chance. I think Mitch Nichols has come to the club with the right attitude, and he's trained the house down. I think he wants to prove something, and I think we've got him still at a good time of his career. So I'm looking forward to seeing him out of the field. There's certainly a player who probably didn't have in our squad last year in that midfield position, and he provides a bit of balance for our team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the new guys coming in were looking good. Obviously, Neville's back home and happy. But also see a couple of our former players. I think Risdon's looking fit and well now at Western Knights. He's certainly invigorated by that. And just for the West Australian in me, I like to see them doing well, and glad to see Mitchie Oxborough pick up something at Brisbane.
Yeah, look, we wish everyone that's a part of the club all the best, as we do. We always like to see Western Australians do well, whether it's at our club or not. Everybody takes a different journey at particular different times, and we were just equally delighted to see Brandon O'Neill do well at Sydney FC last year. So we don't begrudge them. They didn't have their opportunities when they were here. There's a lot of comments around that. I wasn't here when Brandon O'Neill was here, but, as I understand it, Boston was ahead of him in selection at that time, and he decided to take his future elsewhere, and he's done well. We were happy to see that. Yeah,
I know, look, that's the whole point. I mean, you're not always going to be able to fit every young player into your squad, and if you've got a very, very good youth development program, obviously, you've got Risdon, De Silva, Oxborough, Clisby, so there's a lot of those former youth players who are now running with other teams who, for whatever reason, couldn't get through. And when you look at what we had when Clisby was here, he was never going to break through as a fullback. So, they have to go, but just good to see that the Glory is developing youth, and it's an important part. It's not just for yourself, it's for the league.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I couldn't go past by talking about Samantha Curtin and Matildas. How good was that yesterday, guys?
And how good is it that you we as a club have the best woman footballer in the world at this moment, playing out of Western Australia, and she's just, I think, the favourite for me for the Asian Player of the Year, and has got to be giving the Ballon d'Or a crack as well.
Absolutely, and more importantly, other than she's probably the best footballer in the world at the moment on performance, she's just an unbelievable character, a personality to have around the club, and she's a pleasure to deal with. She's a real pleasure to deal with. I've taken a real interest in the women's team, and and Sam and her teammates, and they're just a terrific bunch of girls to deal with, and we're proud to have them wearing the Glory colours. And, seeing Samantha feature, I think she scored 6 goals for the tournament and another handful of assists is just unbelievable. And, I said this morning on my social media that, I don't think Australia's given the girls enough media coverage on these feats. Had it been an AFL team playing on a global stage, I think it would have been 6 pages in the front, for the first 6 pages full of exposure. And today, I think the West did a really good story, but I downloaded the Herald Sun newspaper, and it was 20 pages to the back, which is absolutely disgraceful, given what the girls were able to achieve.
Oh, look, any team that can beat Brazil 6-1, it's just a terrific thing. They've beaten the Asian champion, or the Asian number 1, the world number 1, and Brazil. And that's no mean feat, but they're such a lovely group of people, and, as you said, very humble.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was on email today with Sam, and, something that really stuck out was she plays everything right down. And, it doesn't matter how much I tried to pump her up and congratulate her and tell her how big this was. She plays it all down. She's feet to the ground, totally, to the ground. And, she's now looking back forward. She's already looking forward to going back to, her club in the US and then coming back to glory. That's the type of player she is.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and hopefully she can be an inspiration to the rest of the boys there, and she's certainly setting a very high bar for them.
That's right.
All right, Peter, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll speak to you again at some stage in the future.
Oh, always a pleasure, guys, anytime. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Peter Philopoulos, the CEO of Perth Glory, with some interesting insight into the backroom machinations of an A-League club and what happens. I mean, visas, in this day and age now, massive. And anyone who's had to get an international clearance for a player knows the trials and tribulations that you go through just to get one of those. I imagine the visa's like that, but tenfold.
Certainly delaying the announcement is the right thing to do because, in the past, Glory have maybe been slightly...
Jump the gun, yeah.
Yeah, jump the gun and make announcements and then pull them back. So I think what they've done is the right thing.
Definitely. I mean, you get criticised if you announce it and it doesn't happen. More than you would do if you delayed the announcement. With the overrider, that look, there are some visa complications which have changed significantly in the last few months. Because, it's not something you do every day. I still think we're a little light on for a full squad. I still think we need to sign some quality, certainly down on the left-hand side. As much as, he wasn't the best. Someone like Sydney who could go down that left wing and just, he had other deficits in his game. But
he was an excitement machine's not quite the word, but unpredictable machine. He could do something truly
He certainly had a
amazing.
chaos factor about his game, Yeah, so I think someone down there, and obviously now that we've lost Weston Griffiths, you need someone in the middle who's an enforcer, hard man midfielder. He did the dark art stuff very well. No, look, I'm not saying he broke the rules. He knew exactly where the boundaries of just how far you could go, how far your elbow was allowed outside your body, and all that sort of stuff. And you need that. And he was, if you needed someone to jump in and make a statement tackle, he was your man. Brandon Wilson, very, very good. Obviously a star for the future and needs to be nurtured. But like any 21-year-old, he's a little erratic at times. But he's certainly getting there.
Gets a big chance now, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the point. It's all about opportunity and the ability to step up. I think it's good. All right, so we're closing in on the end of the show. The State League side played the...
Under 20, what was it, the Singapore under...
Yeah, there was
looking to see if I could see any update on that.
The Wednesday game was WA 0, Young Socceroos 4.
Yeah.
Inglewood, but I didn't see the result last night. I didn't make it to the game. So
there was a result last night. I can't remember what it was off the top of my hand, but I think the Young Socceroos have won the Tribe Carnival. But very, very good.
Good to see them here in Perth.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and great to see that Forestville being used as a venue as well. Very good place to go and watch your football from if you haven't. Get yourself down to Forestville home game. They've done a fantastic job with the stand down there, and the atmosphere. It's a good place to go and watch football. Puts NPL clubs to shame.
Just going back to raving about Sam Kerr again. How good was that photo of her doing the backflip.
Oh, yeah, no, they're always dramatic.
Yeah. I just thought that was a great photo. I don't think I could get that high off the ground with a stepladder.
No, I've got a picture of a couple of Dan's 18s. They used to like doing that, didn't they, Dan?
They did, yeah. Had a few.
Yeah, the few that would.
You didn't get any of me doing it though at the time, though, did you? No.
No. I never went out.
Lens wasn't quick enough.
I never went out drinking with you either, so that's probably why it would have come close. So the future for you, Dan. Obviously, you're back home. You're coaching. You're assistant at Morley, but you really like to be an NPL coach or.
Oh, look, I would just say that I'd consider any opportunities. Obviously, I'm very happy at Morley until the end of the season, and I'm currently discussing some potential placements overseas.
Yeah.
So it may be that I move back to the States or somewhere in Asia. Yeah. But come what may, until that time, hoping to win a league with Morley. That'd be nice.
Again, our good friend John O'Reilly is at Armidale this year.
That's right, yeah.
He's lasting the season, which is a new experience for Armidale.
Yeah.
And he's, even if you cut it down to a 12-team league, he's certainly improved their league performance or their league position. So doing well for a young coach.
Yeah, he is. I ran into John the other day. He said it's their record points tally for this time of the year, I think.
Yeah.
So he very proudly proclaimed.
Yeah, no, he's doing well, and sometimes there's some new blood is required in those leagues, and you've got both WA and international experience now.
Yeah, look, who knows? I guess if options arise, then I'll consider them as they come up. But as I said, happy at Windmills till the rest of the season, and then see what happens.
No worries. All right. So for those of you out there who are interested, certainly get onto the Football West webpage, have a look at what's available in the State League, standing committees and zone reps. They certainly need some more bodies in those groups, and these are the people that make the decisions and progress the game. And if you have got an opinion and want to share it and want to do something, then get involved. There's also some submissions required for the strategic direction of football. So if you rather than typing it up on some forum, send it in to them, because that's where if you put it on the forum, they won't read it. If you send it to them directly, they will read it. And as I always say, participate, get involved, because that's what we need people doing. There's too many people just sit back there and complain about everyone else is doing a good job. All right, that's us for the week. Penny will be back next week, and I'll be back the week after. This has been our show, and I will leave the last words up to the great man himself, Les Murray, and we'll see you in the future.
And that means my last goodbye to you as the host of a World Cup here on SBS. I, like all my colleagues, have had a great time here over the past month, having dreamt since I was a little boy of attending a World Cup in Brazil, and then doing it from a backdrop such as this one behind me. I have no complaints. Indeed, I have no complaints about the 8 World Cups I have hosted, nor the 34 years I've spent at SBS broadcasting the beautiful game. I thank many, many people. I thank SBS, and I thank all who have worked with me in this labour of love. Above all, I thank you who have put up with me and shared with me the joys with which I have been blessed and which football can bring into our lives. Football is about many things, but most of all, it is about joy. A medium by which our lives can become more fun, something which makes us smile through our toils. And the World Cup, more than the football, is about having a good time, about having a party. And as parties go, this has been the grandest of them all. Remember it, for you are scarcely likely to see it again. Muito obrigado, meus bons amigos. Thank you all who have become my good friends. It has been a pleasure making your acquaintance. Good night.
Join us again next week at the same time for the World Football Program on Radio Fremantle 107.9 FM.